AM 1060 WMEL. The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County, an organization designed to help inform, educate, and connect seniors and those who care for seniors to resources. The phone number for our education specialist, Kay Kaiser, is 321-473-7770. We are able to promote what we do to you to help you be better informed, to help you be better educated, and to help connect you with services through the generosity of our sponsors. Somebody has to pay the people to do the work. I work free. Not everybody can do that. I don't like doing it, but I do it because it's needed. Sponsors for this show include Gentiva Home Health Care, the Eye Institute, Salabite Dental Implant, Bill Johnson Elder Auditorium, my panelist today, WMEL AM 1060, Gustav Hospital Systems, Levin Home Care, Atlantic Shores Rehabilitation, Ebony News Today, and Wendy Handy from Dale Sorensen Real Estate, who specializes in elder real estate. Notice all those organizations / people are involved with people, with care people. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do for the show today, and since every time I get Bill on the show, I like to tap into his expertise, because no matter how many articles I write for Ebony News Today, Senior Scene, Hometown News, Florida Today, Spotlight Magazine, Aldea, how many television shows I do, and then we've done over 400 of them, we continue to get calls from people that say, I didn't know that. Well, what can I do? How can I get nursing home care? We say, what kind of planning have you done? What do you mean planning? Well, I put my money in an insurance policy so my children could receive it. Do you have a will? No. But I put it in a bank, and a bank will make sure that they get it. Hell, none of that's true, folks. It just isn't true. That's not the way the law works. This is exactly why we need to have people like Bill on this radio show. And if you really are interested in seeing how you can protect yourself, you can go to our website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org, pull up our archive file in there and look at all the radio shows Bill and I have done over the years, and look at the television shows that Bill and I have done, along with Scott Glover and a funeral home director, and we talk about the three-legged and the four-legged planning estate stool. And what happens when you pull one of the legs out? You fall over. And if you don't have adequate planning in place, you don't even stand a good chance of being able to fall over. I am passionate about this, folks, because I am sick and tired of people asking for help when they have really done nothing to help themselves. And having said that, my heart breaks many times because I know people try their best to do something to put things in place for their older age, when in fact they don't earn enough to barely live in our day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month. And how can they plan? And Bill, that's, you listen to me get all upset about this thing, and yet you're an attorney. And folks, I told Bill I always have liked having Bill on the show because I've been in his office when he's talked to people about estate planning. I know what he tells them. I know what he doesn't tell them. And I know that he's honest, and I know that he's fair in his price. And that's another thing. I talked last week about what you're going to do with attorneys and how to establish fees. And, you know, as much as I could talk about it, as much as I wrote about it, you got to believe it, and you've got to talk to your friends and your family members. You got to level with them. You have to tell them what your thoughts are, your plans are. Bill, how about just today, let's just try to do your Medicaid planning seminar that you give over in one senior place. You know it by heart. I'd like to do it on the radio show today, and as you do it, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'll break in and ask questions based on, because, folks, when Bill talks, I want you to think about what he's going to say and think about just today, through our office, we had a phone call from a lady that needs memory care. She doesn't want it. She doesn't have the money to pay for it. She's not willing to do the Medicaid planning to get to where she needs to be. We have another one in a wheelchair that can't get out of the chair by herself. She's not done the planning to put the steps in place to take care of herself. We had another person that went through a divorce, and most often we think it's the man that gets the money and a woman gets the majority of the money for the man to live the rest of her life. Hell, it doesn't always work that way. There's a lot of times that the woman earns more than the man. And when the woman walks out of the marriage, and the man is left with a $1,300 Social Security check and an $1,100 mortgage payment on a house, you tell me how that person's going to do any planning, how they're going to live. Okay, Bill.
Okay.
It's your turn.
My turn. Well, really what we're talking about is the rules for qualifying for Medicaid for long-term care services, whether those services be at a nursing home, assisted living, or even home health care. And generally speaking, to qualify, you have to be over 65 or disabled. You have to be a U.S. citizen or a green card resident. You have to be a resident of the state of Florida. You must apply for any other benefits that you're entitled to, because Medicaid is a payer of last resort. So if you have a long-term care policy or something like that, or you're a veteran, you will need to apply for aid and attendance. And then there is an income and asset test, and also there is what I would call a medical test to qualify. So on the income side of things, there is an income limit for Medicaid, and that is $2,199 a month of gross income. So if you get Social Security, it's not what goes in your bank account, because that's your net. They've already taken out Medicare Part B. They may have taken out something for Part D. So you got to add all that back in. We're using gross numbers. And it's income of any sort. So we're talking Social Security, pensions, interest, dividends, rent, whatever it is. However, we only look at the patient's income. So if there is a spouse, they do not test the spouse's income. So we don't combine them. We don't test the spouse's income. We only look at the patient's income. Now, if the patient is over that $2,199 a month income limit, they have given us a way to make someone in that situation eligible. And that is through the use of something called a qualified income trust. And we can set up this trust, and this will catch the excess income of the patient and then make them income eligible. Okay, so they've given us a test, but if you're over the limit, they give us a way around the test that we can utilize. So income is usually never a bar to getting somebody on Medicaid. On the asset side of things, typically the patient can have $2,000 in assets, and the spouse at home can have up to $119,220. Now, certain assets do not count towards those limits, the most notable being your homestead. If you're single, it is the first $500,000 of equity in your homestead. If you're married, it's unlimited. One car, unlimited value, does not count. If you have an irrevocable prepaid burial contract with a funeral home, that doesn't count. You can have money up to $2,500 in an account earmarked for your burial. That does not count. Usually IRAs or retirement funds that are in distribution, that means paying out, do not count. And there's a few other things like burial plots for members of your immediate family that do not count as assets as well. So those things we look at, when we're trying to get somebody qualified, we kind of have to go in and get a whole financial picture. What's the patient's income? If they have a spouse, what is their situation? What are the assets? What's in the patient? What does the patient's name appear on? What does the spouse's name appear on? And in looking at those things, we go and get, copies of deeds, copies of bank accounts, brokerage accounts, and we see how everything's titled. So in general, we have to usually move some assets around to make people eligible. And if somebody is incapacitated, then we need to have a really good power of attorney to make that happen. You've got to have somebody who can manage your financial affairs. And hopefully, the person's not incapacitated who we need the power of attorney from. If they are, we hope they've done some planning and have already executed one ahead of time.
Let me break in right here at this point.
Okay.
You remember your thought. Folks, I hope you understand, and as you're listening to what Bill's saying, because what he's saying is both complicated and uncomplicated. It's complicated if you don't have somebody that understands what he's talking about help you through the process. So where we make a mistake is we first say, I don't have the assets that require me to go to an attorney to find out whether I should be doing this stuff or not. That's a bunch of bunk. If you've worked and you have a home, if you have something in the bank, if you have insurance, if you have long-term care insurance, all these things can be protected if you do it the right way. Now,
and even if you have assets, same thing.
Yeah, but Bill, most people think that we do our Medicaid planning so we can beat the government out of money so we can get long-term care windows. That's a bunch of bunk, because if we don't do it the right way, the spouse...
Well, let's talk about that. For example, remember, if you have an IRA, typically that's going to count unless it's making distributions. So if you're not 70 and a half and you've been required to make distributions, but say you're 65 and you just haven't taken anything out, take something out.
Exactly right.
Yeah, put it in distribution. You just made an asset that would count against you into an asset that no longer counts.
Okay, and you just sent me the NALA, the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys Bulletin, and I read in there about the extension for charitable distribution accounts, wherein effective 18 December of this past year, they have extended the ability of a person to distribute up to $100,000 from their IRA on an annual basis to a charity and give it tax-free.
But remember, for Medicaid, there's a 60-month look-back.
I know.
Yeah, there's a 5-year look-back, and if you transfer assets to anyone other than your spouse or a disabled child, then that runs afoul of that look-back. It could be a trust set up for a disabled child.
Right.
But basically, if you make a transfer, and I'm talking in general terms, to anybody other than the spouse or a disabled child or a trust set up for a disabled child, you're going to run afoul of that look-back period, and that will make you ineligible for Medicaid. So there are still ways that we can move money out to a child, say, to take care of you, without running afoul of that look-back period. And one of those ways is something called a personal services contract. Instead of giving the money to the child, you hire them. And we draw up a contract, and they agree to do X number of hours for you for so many, your life expectancy, basically. And we're able to move money as a payment to them in return for them doing those services.
That's another way for a family to help pay their way in the care situation And I don't think we make as much use of that capability as we should, Bill.
Well, correct. And a lot of times kids give up jobs or financial opportunities to come and take care of a parent. And this is a way you could actually move money out to reduce your assets to qualify for Medicaid. At the same time, compensate, one of your children or relatives to help in that endeavor to compensate you and make sure that everything, all your caregivers are doing their jobs and, that you're getting to your doctor's appointments and, paying for things.
And that's a damn good point, because a lot of people don't realize, Bill, that what a family member can do, like help a person get into a shower, help them on and off of the toilet, help them clean themselves, help them get into and out of bed, transfer them. Lower levels of in-home care are not licensed to do that. So the licensing things don't apply to the family member. So if you're paying a family member a low rate to do this, you can help make your resources stretch so that you're able to take care of yourself. And that's one of the reasons that we have this long-term care plan, making resources stretch so that people can be cared for more than 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. The idea is to be able to extend the care and at the same time make sure that the surviving spouse doesn't go on a charity dole themselves.
Correct, because we got to worry about that. That's why the spouse at home is allowed to have up to $119,220, because we don't want to drain the whole family budget, and then the patient dies, and next thing you know, we're got the spouse getting food stamps.
Yeah. One of the things that happened in the cases that I mentioned there too, we just got called on. And folks, when you think about it, our little organization, Helping Seniors, gets 4 phone calls in one morning about situations that really, in many cases, are life-threatening. If a person is booted out of a place for not following the regulations, and they have no place to go, and they're not Medicaid qualified, and they're disabled, where the hell do they go, Bill?
Well, you can't discharge somebody unless it's to a safe environment, is one thing. You're not allowed to just throw people on the street, especially people who need medical attention. So you have to discharge them to a safe environment. And you know as well as I do, Joe, that usually that discharge is to the hospital. And
I know.
And then they dump them there and won't take them back. So,
and in the hospital ends up trying to put them in a nursing home because they won't qualify for assisted living care.
Right.
They put them in a nursing home because of the number of activities of daily living that are impacted. They put them in a nursing home. They get them in a nursing home for a while and they say, hey, if we can put that person in a lower level of care, we can do it at a lesser cost to the government, so let's do that.
Right.
So we work the system the back way. But in the meantime...
Well, we haven't even gotten to the medical qualifications yet.
Okay, go ahead.
So, when you're looking for long-term care services under Medicaid, it all depends where you're looking to get those services. So if you're looking to get services at a nursing home, basically what we do is we apply for Medicaid. The doctor at the nursing home certifies that you need nursing home level of care. And then we do the financial and income verifications. You get approved, and basically your income, for the most part, will go to the nursing home, and Medicaid will pay the difference. And as many people apply for that benefit and get approved, the state agrees to pay that. The other place that people want to get care is outside of a nursing home, and that would be like an assisted living or at home. And those are what we call home and community-based care services. And the method for applying for those is a little different. You have to send in a form to the Senior Resource Alliance in Orlando, and they will conduct a phone interview with the family, and what they're looking for is to see whether or not the patient meets one of 5 different tests, which are based on the patient's ability to do activities of daily living: walking, transferring, bathing, dressing, eating, and toileting. If you need some help with 5 or more of those, you're eligible. Or if you need some help with 4 or more of those, plus you need supervision of medications, you're eligible. If you have a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's disease and require some help with 3 or more, you're eligible. If you require total help with 2 or more, you're eligible. Or if you have a degenerative or chronic condition requiring daily nursing services, you're eligible. And then what happens is the folks down there give you a rating, and that rating's from 1 to 5. 1 being the least needy, 5 being the neediest. Then there is a waiting list. The 5s are at the top, the 1s are at the bottom. They take the 5s before they take the 4s, before they take the 3s, 2s, and 1s.
Right.
And so it's organized top to bottom based on need. If you are on that waiting list and you are a 5, for example, you'll probably be on that list 6 months at least.
Exactly right, because there's over 40,000 people on the waiting list.
Right. If you're a 1, you'll be on that list several years.
Right.
And it's just based on how much, money the state appropriates to the program, folks.
So it all boils down to how well you plan ahead. You can circumvent a lot of this if you know that you're going to qualify for Medicaid. Why not start the process now?
Right.
Folks, we're at a show break. There's a lot that we're going to talk about in the second half, so please stay with us because there's a lot of information we're going to be able to give you in the next half hour. Stay with us. This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County. Our website is helpingseniors.brevard.org. I highly encourage you to write that down. Go on that website and take a look at all the radio and TV shows that are archived on there, especially like the show that Bill and I are doing today will probably be up on the website by tomorrow night. So you can get all kinds of information, articles, our newspaper articles, everything, our newsletter, it's all archived. You can read it. There's a lot of valuable information. The phone number for Kay over at the information specialist at the office is 321-473-7770. We're looking for a new office, and as soon as we get the new office location identified, I'll tell you where that is. And we got a lot of good things going to happen in 2016, and we'll tell you about that. But my sponsors for the second part of the show include Senior Scene Magazine, Hometown News, Spotlight Magazine, Seniors Helping Seniors, The Fountains of Melbourne, Beth Courtney of the Braswell Courtney Financial Advisor Team, Barbara McIntyre from Home Equity Loan Specialist, and that's something you need to think about what Bill and I are talking about today in your Medicaid planning. There is a way that reverse mortgages can help, because that's another thing that a good estate planning attorney can help you understand how you can make your current assets work in your behalf without losing them. The other sponsors include Canadian Meds of Melbourne, Wiedemann Malik Attorneys at Law, Vitas Hospice, and some others I'll be able to talk about next week. But let's just go back to Bill. Bill, we were talking before we took the break about the waiting list, and how about picking up there?
Okay. So we were talking about how they give you a rating from 1 to 5. You go on the list, and the 5s are at the top, the 1s are at the bottom. If you're a 5 on the list, you'll be there, probably 6 months. If you're a 1, you'll probably be there several years. Well, when your name gets called off the list, then you have to do an application with the Department of Children and Families, which does the income and asset verification that we talked about earlier in the show. And once you get approved by them, you pick one of 4 counties here in Region 7, which is pretty much all our listening area.
Right.
The companies are American Elder Care, Evercare,
Sunshine.
Yeah, Sunshine, Coventry, and United Healthcare.
Right.
Yeah, there's 4 of them. And you pick the company, and then if you are looking for services at home, they will send out a care manager who will meet with the family, assess the situation. They will offer some number of hours of home health care. They also offer other services, maybe like adult daycare, stuff like that. And you may be able to haggle with them a little bit if you have some at least medical documentation saying you need more care. Just so everybody knows, there is no Medicaid program that pays for 24/7 care at home. So don't be looking for that.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. If you are at home, basically the patient would keep their income because they've got to pay their own room and board, and then the services are delivered by the Medicaid-approved company. If you are looking for services at an assisted living facility, it gets a little trickier. You have to pick one of the 4 companies, and then you have to be in an assisted living facility that has a contract with one of those 4 companies. What does that contract get you? Well, basically, you get a reduction in the room and board rate. So instead of paying maybe $3,600 a month, you might be paying $2,200 a month.
Okay.
But you'll still have to come up with the base level of room and board. So, you were talking about a gentleman who only makes $1,100 a month. Obviously, there would have to be some planning done because he's going to be short $1,100 a month. The reason for that, folks, is federal law prohibits spending Medicaid money on room and board at an assisted living facility. What do you get from the Medicaid provider? Well, besides getting that reduction in the room and board rate, and just so folks have an idea, normally room and board at an assisted living over in our area is about $3,600 a month.
Right.
And then usually what they will do is they will rate you, and how much assistance you need. They'll either tack on anywhere from $0 all the way up to another $2,000 a month. So it's not unusual to see people with $4,000 or $5,000 a month assisted living bills.
Right. But let's stop right there.
Okay. So if you're on Medicaid, your bill is only $2,200, and then all the services are provided for or paid for by that Medicaid company.
So what we're talking about, Bill, as I understand what you're saying, is let's say if a person gets $1,300 a month Social Security, the government takes the state takes the $1,360 Social Security and probably kicks back $50 then for living expenses, and then they
get to keep about $200.
About $200, okay.
Yeah.
So $1,100 is made available to help pay that assisted living bill, and then out of the money, depending on the company and where we are in the state, the amount of money that can be paid through the through American Healthcare or Sunshine or Coventry can vary anywhere from $900 to $1,100 a month because they have to take their expenses out.
Yeah, they pay for the services. You have to come up with the room and board rate, but it's at a reduced room and board rate.
Right. So what you have to do then is find assisted living facilities that you can develop a package where it can be paid for. You're not going to get the Cadillac service. If you had a long-term health care plan yourself in place and you had the assets saved, you could go out and buy a $6,000 a month assisted living Cadillac type living, private room, and everything else. But when you're Medicaid, you're going to get 2 to a room.
Correct. It's a semi-private room.
Right.
So let's talk about that briefly, because for your gentleman who gets $1,100 a month, it would actually be cheaper for him to be in a nursing home than it would be assisted living.
Cheaper for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not for the state.
Not for the state, correct.
Right.
So if he were in a nursing home, they would basically take his income except for about $105. If he was in assisted living, he's still got to come up with that $2,200 or so for room and board.
Right.
So it's actually cheaper for him to be in a nursing home.
But now you just raised another point. That person that really can be cared for in an assisted living facility, but because he doesn't have the money, he gets placed in the nursing home. The nursing home and the state and the Sunshine, I all see that the person doesn't need that level at nursing home care.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. If you come in and you talk to me and you need help immediately, the only way I can get you help via Medicaid immediately is if you go in a nursing home. But that may not be where you need to be.
Right.
Regrettably, we have this waiting list for home and community-based services. So there is one way around that waiting list. If you go into a nursing home and you are there for at least 60 days and you get on Medicaid while you're in the nursing home, then if you transition out of the nursing home into assisted living or back to home, you skip the waiting list. So there is an incentive, because it costs the state less money to care for somebody at an assisted living facility or at home than it does for them at a nursing home. There is an incentive to move people out of the nursing homes. That's why you skip the list.
And the sad part about all this is that I know of 3 cases that I've been involved in within the last 2 weeks where what's happened, what we're talking about, Bill, is it has happened, and the children of the people involved said, I can't take mom or dad to live with me. And in one case, the guy is he's got roughly $1,300 a month coming in from himself. One of the children is contributing $175, another $200. So he's got close to $1,700 a month to live on. They can't take their father to live with them. They can't find a place to live. Where do these people go?
Well, when we were talking about assisted living facilities, generally we were talking about the larger institutional facilities. There are a whole crop of assisted living facilities that used to be what we called adult homes.
Right.
These are houses that are converted, and a lot of those are owner-operated. The people who work in there own the house, and they are taking care of, generally up to 6 people in there. Now, a lot of those you can negotiate with, so you may be able to find one that would be able to take him at a lesser monthly rate and just simply pay straight out of pocket. Some of those adult homes also deal with Medicaid, so you may be able to get them to agree to take a lesser room and board amount as long as they know they're get some extra money coming in for the services through the Medicaid waiver program.
So what you've done today, and I have helped do, is raise a whole spectrum of problems for families to deal with in providing care for loved ones in the future. And it's going to get more costly and more complicated, and the waiting lists are going to do nothing but lengthen over the years to come, Bill.
Well, we know there's a demographic wave hitting, and we are having lots more people 80 years old, lots more people 65 and older, and that wave is moving through as we're speaking. We're just in the initial stages of that wave, but that will be moving through the system. And so, yes, there will be a lot more demand for those services as we move forward, as the baby boomers come through.
Now, when I asked you a couple of days ago what we want to talk about on the show today, you said you'd also are going to mention some of the changes in Florida law and some of the things that are happening. I know that everything you and I have talked about today varies from state to state. States have different requirements, and that's another thing. If somebody moves into Florida, they just simply don't understand that it's not the same here as it was in New York or New Jersey or someplace else.
Correct. When Medicaid is a federal program, but the states implement it, and the states interpret the Medicaid rules differently depending on what state you're in. So there are different planning options available to you depending on where you reside. A good example of that would be the homestead. In Florida, if you receive Medicaid services, the state cannot put a lien on your house, whereas in most other states they can for the amount of services rendered. But in Florida, that homestead is protected by our state constitution from creditors' claims. So in Florida, you don't have to worry about them taking the house, as everybody calls it, because it is constitutionally protected in Florida. Whereas if you were in New York or Massachusetts or somewhere, they would put a lien on the house, and eventually they would foreclose that lien. So
just for a second, let's say somebody had a home and you had a $200,000 mortgage on it. And let's say you had $400,000 in the bank and you're looking at a long-term health care problem. What we were talking about under Medicaid planning, it would be perfectly legal for that family to pay off that mortgage and some of those assets. And that's one of the legal ways that you can make things better for yourself.
Correct. You can always pay off your debts. You can pay off your mortgage, pay off your car loans, pay off your credit cards.
But this is why it's so important.
And then, Joe, to get back to what you were talking about, you could have the people go and take a reverse mortgage. And as long as they didn't take all the money out and put it in the bank, that reverse mortgage would not count as an asset.
It would help them to pay their living bills.
Or additional care above and beyond what the Medicaid providers could provide. Or, for example, get them a private room, where Medicaid is only, you can do a lot of stuff like that. They could pay off their traditional mortgage, get a line of credit, reverse mortgage, and then use those monies to better the patient's life.
So I'm seeing now a better way for elder law attorneys, financial planners, and home equity loan type people / reverse mortgage people, such as Barbara McIntyre. And I've had her on the radio show and did a couple of TV shows with the lady. She's smart.
Right.
She has used herself as an example, and she stated her own case. She told people on television why she did what she did so that she could help extend her capability to care for herself. Mm-hmm. And this makes sense. And it's like she said, and you've said it many times, you don't have to have $1 million in the bank to do this. If you got $100,000 in the bank, it's much better to protect the $100,000 than just let somebody take it.
I have met with dozens of people in the nursing home whose kids or spouses have come to me to get them eligible for Medicaid. And when I meet with the people in the nursing home, I ask them right off the bat one question. Would you rather give all your money to the nursing home, or would you rather do what we're talking about doing and move some assets around and become Medicaid eligible? To a person, nobody has said they want to give the nursing home all their money.
I don't blame them.
Right. They've worked all their life to accumulate that nest egg, and they're worried about who's going to take care of their spouse.
That's the word I wanted you to say, is spouse, because the person that you leave behind has got to be able to pay bills, got to be able to live, got to be able to have transportation. And if you take all the assets, you just cause another social services problem for the government. You put somebody else on the public dole that doesn't need to be there.
I totally agree. And Joe, you know me, I've talked to you many times, but my parents, when my father retired, he got a pension. Most people, when they retire these days, don't have a pension.
I know.
So they're going to be living off of Social Security, and if they don't inherit something, they're going to be on the dole.
Exactly right. And with the increased cost of living, it's even going to make it worse. But go back and pick up on something I mentioned in the first part of the show, and I got to think about it. When I mentioned about the federal law that was enacted on 18 December about the charitable distribution thing, I want to make sure people understand that I wasn't trying to associate that with Medicaid. I just want people to understand that there has been a provision where you could legally transfer assets after your 70.5 year birthday. You could transfer up to $100,000 tax-free legally out of your IRA distribution without a penalty. And the government has recognized that was a pretty smart thing to have in there because it helped charities.
Correct.
So, but you can still do that. For those of you that have that kind of money, that you'd much rather see the money go as a deduction, that's what you. Let's just real quick. I want to, I had somebody that's doing the same thing we're talking about right now. They gave us a Jaguar. And we're going to raffle that Jaguar off starting, I hope we start selling tickets next month, $25 a pop. But all the money from those tickets will go into an elder endowment to help take care of people of our county. And, folks, as we get closer to the kickoff of that, I'll announce more. But it was a 1992 ruby red Jaguar that's absolutely gorgeous with only 38,000 miles on it. And then the lady gave it to the Helping Seniors. So she got a tax deduction on it. It's all done legally. And it took me hours to do, so I know more about the rules. But we're almost out of time, but what else would you tell people today, Bill, about the Medicaid planning, what they should really think about?
Well, I think the first signs that somebody's going to have a long-term care event, you probably need to go to see an elder law attorney who does some sort of Medicaid planning, and you need to get in with them and find out what the do's and don'ts are and how you can go about getting somebody eligible. And that's probably even true if that person has long-term care insurance, because sometimes long-term care insurance runs out. Sometimes long-term care insurance doesn't pay enough to cover the bills. So there may be things that we can do that would help that family out.
Okay. One thing I know that there's been a lot of issues raised about long-term care insurance, companies that carry it going out of business, but there's a new product available, and I really don't know that much about it, but I will find out about it. We will talk about it in the future. But are you aware there's a new product out that will help people? It's akin to long-term care insurance. You know what I'm talking about?
There's a couple different products that are out. Some are like annuities, where you put money into the annuity, and once that money in the annuity is spent, then they continue to pay your long-term care bills. So it's like a very high deductible insurance program.
Yeah. Well, a good financial advisor, sometimes they're not too keen on annuities. There are so many things that are good, and there's some bad things about annuities. Again, it goes back to the point that you need to get expert advice.
Well, the interesting thing about the annuities, or using life insurance kind of that way, is that if you die and don't use the benefit for long-term care, the monies go to your heirs. Whereas with a traditional long-term care insurance policy, you die tomorrow, your heirs get nothing.
They get nothing. That's exactly what I've done. But
Well, your way of doing it is a lot cheaper.
It's right.
Than the other way.
Yeah. I look back, and it goes back that it's never too late most of the time to try to do something to protect yourself. And I was in my 60s when I bought my long-term health care insurance. But like I say, the market has changed now, folks. But there are other things on the market that if you go to the right people, you can ask questions. And, if you don't like the answer, you call Helping Seniors. Call Kay. She'll call me if she doesn't know the answer. And we can at least get you directed to people like Bill, Beth Courtney from the financial team of Badwell Advisors. I got other financial people I can recommend you to, people I trust. And this, people call me all the time, Bill, for advice. And I'm very careful about what I say. And I try to give them at least 2 people to call if I possibly do it. But I'd much rather have somebody go to somebody I know that is honest, and I think they stand a better chance of getting the right answer. And when you get into business working with attorneys and elder law planning, you got to get to the right people.
I agree.
What do you charge somebody that comes in and says, I want to talk to you?
Nothing. It's a free consultation.
That's a great thing, folks. And that's something that we need to think about. You got about 30 seconds. I'll let you talk.
Well, I think you definitely need to go and get to some professional advice, go to some seminars, educate yourself, and then avail yourself of those resources when the time of need comes.
Yep. And if you need information, call Bill at his office, 253-1667, 253-1667.
Area code 321.
Area code 321. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Bill, for being here. We'll see you next week, folks, with Dr. Sheldon.